One thing I've learned with sewing these little pieces of knit fabric onto themselves is I change the foot. So I'm going to remove my Bernina #1 foot, and I'm going to put on a foot that is just 1/4 of an inch wide. Now my fabric is gray and my thread is dark brown. That's intentional. I use the 1/4 of an inch foot because it can go right along the edge of my strip. And you'll notice no pins. The spray glue is holding everything in place now that I've kind of played with my tucks. And then I will do the same thing on the other side, and I will stitch from top to bottom once again. Because you all know from experience, if I were to turn around and go bottom to top, it could skew things. And I'm going to leave a little bit hanging on the end. And when I use this technique, I build 1 or 2 at a time like this. Don't try and get all the pieces glued down and then go to sewing. In fact, most of the time I do 1 strip at a time, and then I'll press it. I'll just press it flat as it was sewn because that kind of smooths out any little wrinkles that may be in there. And then I will build the next. And that really allows the design to evolve as you go along. So there's one. And now this narrower strip, I'm just going to stitch right down the middle of it. Now, let's talk about heading off trouble. This fabric is very stable, and I am just sewing along. I'm not manipulating or doing anything. But if you find you start sewing and your fabric is stretching, what you can do is you can take a little strip of stabilizer. I just cut 1.5 inch wide strips of tearaway stabilizer and slip it underneath. And then you can just stitch along with the stabilizer underneath, and no stretching will happen. And then you just pull it away at the end. Just tear it off. Okay, there we go. So now I'll take it over to the ironing board and give it a little press, and then I'll carry on with the next and build it all the way across, however many or as few little strips of fabric as I want. Okay, so every time I sew a strip, I give it a press, and this is basic sewing 101, but if you don't know it, this might be the best thing you learn on this CD. Anytime I sew a seam, I press it flat as sewn. It takes out those little irregularities. And if you notice, there was the line I put in for my center front line, and remember I said the clo chalk disappears when it's pressed, and look, it's just gone. So on this little top, I would continue building, and I might build a little ways on one side and then I'd do some on the other side. The one thing I do not look for in most instances is perfect symmetry, because I find it's a whole lot easier to do an asymmetrical line. But do whatever works best for you and what makes your heart and design soul sing.